Hi everyone. Um, so in this video, we'll look at the remaining operations uh, with respect to database which we can perform. And what I'll do is I'll do one video each for uh, create user or create an entry into database, and then update delete. So a couple of videos I'll create, one for create because that's a very important concept, and one for update and delete. So we already saw how we can retrieve data from database in the last video, which is the read operation. So we want to complete our CRUD acronym. CRUD stands for create, read, update, and delete. So in this video, we'll look at the C part, which is the create part, and continuing on the same entity, which is the user entity. Uh, the idea of this video is just to see a record getting created in the database. Okay, so considering the same user entity, we will create the functions required in the controller and the service and the repository interface to see how we can create a user in the database with Spring Boot, of course. Okay, so what I'll do is I've already shared the screen. We have the user controller in front of us. What I want to do is create the entry point here for the create user endpoint. So obviously creation will involve post call, as you would understand very clearly. Okay. And that post call would contain uh, a JSON being sent with the user details. Okay. So it will contain things like I've already created, uh, that particular format in Postman. So it will contain things like name, email, password, whatever you have, whatever details you want to put inside your user table, it should contain that in your body. Okay. And of course, the endpoint and the header, we uh, can give content type as application JSON, which means that the data being sent in the body would be of JSON format. Okay. And as you can see, the body contains a JSON data. In production applications or in live applications, generally you would also have, uh, obviously not for users create, you won't have auth token, uh, but in general, when you are creating or doing a post call for authentication purposes, you would need an auth token. But for creating a user, that is not required because that's the first endpoint for you to get authenticated. Once your user gets created, then only you get that authentication token. This token then you use in other endpoints, depending on the permission level. So that is something which we'll look at in the future. Okay, so don't worry about other header uh, parameters which may be there in APIs. In this video, the idea is to see a record getting created in the database. So here we would only have content type as our one parameter getting sent in the header. Okay. So coming back to the function, obviously, let us change this to create user, and instead of path variable, this would be a request body because we want to grab the request body coming in from the request. It would be of. So remember one thing, there are various ways in which you can do this. Uh, so you can create a request object separately itself and provide that here, or expect that to be getting sent from the API. But I just want to make this little bit simpler. So I'm just taking it as the user object only. okay, which is nothing but the user entity, which is mapped to the user table. Uh, so we are expecting the request body to be of the same type as your user entity. Okay. Now, second thing, for simplicity's sake, I'll just want to send a string, which means um, either error or user getting created successfully. Something like that is what we are going to send as an output. Um, so service, we will have a create user function only, which is still not written. It would be of the type user. Okay. Let's put the service function and create that function. Okay. Uh, Save is an inbuilt function provided by Spring Boot, and for the repository uh, uh, kind of interfaces, okay, which means nothing but trying to save the data into that table, you know, which that particular repository points to. So here, this user repository points to the user entity, which in turn points to the user table. Okay, got it? Okay, pretty simple. Um, I think this would be our most basic post API we can create. Okay, and instead of that dynamic request path variable, it would be a create users create, which means it's an endpoint for creating a user, and request body contains a JSON of type user. Okay, let's see if this is working quickly. I'm executing the application. So the Tomcat got started on port 8080. Let's try to quickly check if the user is getting created in the database. And obviously, in the um, table, we have name, email, and password as the fields. In this particular video, since I want to keep it more simple, we will not be encrypting the password as such. We will just be storing the password as it is and trying to see if a record gets created in the table. Okay. Uh, so let me quickly go to the postman, change this to PA, and this will be post. Okay. Uh, let's see if the user gets created in the database. So it came with this response user created successfully, which is great. Let's go to the database to see if there is a user which got, yes. So this user got created with the details which we sent with this JSON. Okay. Yes. So that is what I wanted to cover in this video. Hope it was informative. And just to recap, we created uh, one function to um, grab the endpoint, okay, or grab the data coming from the request in the controller. We created one function to write the actual business logic, that is logic to store data into the database. That is in service class we will have, uh, obviously we injected the user repository object, and using that object we are calling the save function to save the data into the database. Okay, and there could be more complex logic which you can write here depending on the use case. Here it is a more simpler logic because we are basically just getting started with REST APIs and trying to do our first CRUD operations. So that's about for this video, and I'll see you in the next one where we will try to update some data in the database. So till then, I'll see you. Thank you.